Hi there. My name is Aparna Ray, and I'm the founder of Moving Beyond. We are a management consulting firm based in Seattle, Washington, focused on data-informed approaches to equity and inclusion. I want to take a couple of minutes today to talk about some of the myths that I've heard around data-informed approaches to equity and inclusion at work. I hope that these are going to inspire you to think about using data to be strategic and build solutions that are going to help you make progress with respect to equity and inclusion in your organization. Okay, there are 3 myths that I want to cover with you. And these are the ones that I hear often, almost on a weekly basis, if not more often. The first one is that small organizations don't need data to inform DEI. In many instances, I hear from social impact organizations or other small organizations like law firms that they don't really need to rely on data because they can see or observe changes. I want to take you back to the piece on gut instincts. The discipline of collecting, tracking, and analyzing is really important, even for small organizations. Successful organizations use assessments to gauge equity and inclusion in practice and invest in understanding how their employees or external partners are experiencing the organization. Some nuances to consider. Because in small organizations, the sample size is small, it might be easier to lose trust. So you may need to think about how and when to collect data and who has access to the data. Demographic data in small organizations tends to be less useful, especially percentages of employees by various identities. I would encourage you to use actual numbers instead. Anonymity can be more or less important. So my advice for small organizations, especially if you're in a low trust environment, is to get some outside help as you're getting started. Yes, it costs time and money, but it's going to ensure safety and reliability. So let's talk a little bit about the difference between confidentiality and anonymity. Anonymity is if you send out a survey, you don't know who has or has not responded, for instance, because you're not collecting any personally identifying information, right? So you're not even, for instance, collecting email IDs or sending them out to people's email IDs personally. Confidential, on the other hand, means I know who did or did not respond, but I don't know what their specific response is. So if you're sending out a survey, what this means is, for instance, that Bob and Marta did not respond to the survey, and you can remind Bob and Marta to send in their response, but you don't know whose answer connects to which person. And these are some of the things to think about as you're going to collect data in a small organization. Let's talk about the second myth, and I hear this all the time, and it's around collecting demographic data. And this is one that I feel really passionate about. We know that race, gender, social class, and other identities shape just about every outcome, both in the workplace and in community. Everything from access to education to the first job that you're going to get to getting promoted, how long you're going to live, for instance. We know that there are certain aspects of someone's identity, their age, their gender, sexual orientation, race, ethnicity. They have outsized impacts on whether or not they have access to resources. Not collecting demographic data puts an organization at the risk of not actually having a full picture of what's happening in their organization and for whom. Okay. I want to show you what I mean using a non-human example. So I'm going to show you a couple of photos, right? They're just cats. But there's a big difference between a lion, a house cat, and a cheetah. You have the permission to laugh. We can't just say cats are cats and we don't need additional information, because while I can keep my house cat really happy in our 1,200 square foot home, I couldn't keep a cheetah happy in this amount of space. Never mind some of the safety issues related with living with cheetahs. All right, we don't need to have cheetahs living in our homes. Identities impact how we're perceived and how favorable our environment is and what interventions we may need. There are geographies in which you can't collect race data. For instance, And I've said this before, if you live and work in France, you're not allowed to ask the race or ethnicity of a person. In nearly all cases, especially in North America, demographic data can be collected as long as it's voluntary. And demographic data includes a really wide range of things, right? Gender, sexual orientation, race and ethnicity, level of education. It could be whether you're an immigrant or first generation, how much education you have, and so many other things. Demographics are a key to getting actionable insights since our demographic identities are closely linked to the outcomes. So, best practice for collecting and storing self-ID data. These include having a data privacy policy, knowing when to collect certain kinds of data through your system of record, your HRIS, or whether you need to run an anonymous survey to just find out who makes up your organization. The third myth is not using or wanting to use quantitative methods. Depending on the size of your organization and available resources, such as like a skilled researcher, it's unlikely that you'll get actionable insights from qualitative methods alone. I'm talking about focus groups or observations or interviews. Well-designed surveys are still one of the best ways to capture information from a large number of people. They also make it possible to collect data quickly and affordably while preserving anonymity and confidentiality. Let's do a quick recap. Anonymity means you don't know who the participants are, while confidentiality means you know who they are, but you are able to remove identifying information from a report. Plus, you need to consider operational data, which lives typically in your system of record, and that will be largely quantitative. It's going to take a lot of patience from you as a practitioner to move your organizations along this path or this journey towards having a strong practice around using data to inform equity and inclusion work. This is Aparna again, checking in with you. What did you think? What are some of the myths that resonated with you or that you have heard or that are being used to avoid using a data-informed approach to equity and inclusion inside of your organization? If you feel like you're ready to make an investment and use more data to advance DEI, then I want to invite you to my on-demand class on data for inclusive change. It's a 3-hour class that you can take at any time at your own pace from anywhere in the world. So I hope to see you in class, and thank you so much for being a part of this learning community with me.